Okay, let's call this meeting to order. Okay, the meeting has been called to order. Let's start with declaration of conflicts of interest.
None.
None? Okay. And the approval of the minutes. We approved for that?
I thought Joanne did a great job on the minutes, and just a reminder, we will need someone to do minutes for this evening too.
Thank you for the compliment. I'll do them again this evening. I just kind of like to go on a meeting per meeting. I'm probably good till the summer, and
Okay.
or if somebody else would rather do them.
Oh, you're doing a great job.
Oh, sure. Thank you.
Okay. And next, the approval of the agenda. I kind of would like to add something. I don't know if we should talk about it or not. Like, I just in the newspaper seeing, like, in the last month there was 2 people that I seen died from what do you call it, snowmobile accidents. And I just don't know if that's connected to those trails or not, if that's something we should talk about or not. It might be something to talk about. That's something that I was thinking of. If it wants to be mentioned, but I don't know if we have a say in any of that or not. But
Oh, I think you're muted, Heather.
Sorry. I don't think, I mean, I agree those are quite tragic events, and hate to see those things happening, but I don't know that they happened within the city limits. It seems to me there was at least one of them that was up west. I don't mean, that doesn't take away from how, the tragedy of it. I just don't know if it falls within our scope. I don't know how everyone else feels.
Yeah, maybe we don't have to mention it. I don't know. I seen it on the news. I was like, oh, geez, but the pathways, like, if that had anything to do with it. But yeah.
And Ryan, I think we're all with you in that. We just had Bryson Guptill do a presentation about the Confederation Trail, and he is concerned about the snowmobile usage and snowmobiles exceeding the limit on the Confederation Trail, as well as the existing limit of 80 kilometers an hour. And, it was almost like a day after was the first death, and then a few days later was the second death. So it was very timely, unfortunately timely, that, it tied into his presentation about snowmobile use on the Confederation Trail. As an individual, I wrote a letter to the Minister of Transportation, Stephen Myers, and in my email to him, I said I was very concerned about the lack of signage on the Confederation Trail province-wide. Not enough signage is done to advise walkers that they aren't allowed on the Confederation Trail. That was one of the things that I wrote about. Now, personally, I also don't want to see horses allowed on the Confederation Trail, and right now they're not allowed. We had experience in Nova Scotia last summer where we biked different legs of the Rum Runners Trail and the trail in around Timberley, which is outside of Halifax. And in all those trails, there's horse hoof marks on the trail, and they literally stay in the trail and they make grooves and you have to bike around them. So the people that have written against the horses' hooves on the trail and to maintain it and keep it that way Also the maintenance costs if you were to allow the horses on the trail. And that if you're a horse lover, they've also been writing in the newspaper saying they wish that they could have more bridle paths and access to the Confederation Trail. So again, that was a personal letter, but I did mention Bryson's part about the signage, you know, not being adequate enough for the pedestrians.
Mhm. Okay, yeah. I just thought it might be something to mention here. So approval of the minutes. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to mention or add to it?
I'm sorry, could I have a mover and a seconder, please? For the approval of the minutes? Okay, Margaret's approving them, and a seconder, and Carrie seconded. Thank you.
Okay. And now let's move to update from Ramon on 2021-22 capital budget implications for active transportation.
Okay, so the capital budget recently passed and it included all the projects that we had previously discussed. So all the ones that we've applied for the PEI Active Transportation Fund are in there, including the Bypass Highway project and the Grafton Street connection and a number of other projects. They are conditional on funding. So we still haven't gotten word back from the province on whether our funding applications have been approved. I think we submitted 7 in all. But Joanne, you had mentioned last time about an upcoming announcement on additional funding. So that announcement has come. There was an announcement just last week from the federal minister that they've announced a dedicated active transportation fund at the federal level. So they took money from the public transit stream. I think they didn't have enough projects under that stream, and they've allocated specifically to active transportation. So I have the press release open, but I believe it's 400 million that they have dedicated across Canada over 5 years to help build new and expanded networks of bikeways, bike lanes, paths, and pedestrian bridges, as well as support for repairs and planning studies. So sort of what I was going to bring back to my Environment and Sustainability Committee, and my chair, Councillor Tweel, is here, and we discussed this, was that if for those projects that we weren't successful for, that we would look at this additional funding as an alternative option. I don't know when the details of that fund will be announced. They've announced the plan, but they don't have the application forms or anything that we would need to complete before we'd send it in. So that would be the plan there. And then just related to this, also in the press release that they put out, that the federal government is working on a national active transportation strategy. So there will be opportunity to provide input into that. And I definitely encourage anybody that was interested in participating in those sessions or in submitting something to review sort of their objectives around that plan.
And how do you do
that? You just have to kind of search they haven't released anything yet, except that they're going to be doing it, but it's called the National Active Transportation Strategy. So I would hope more information will come, but you could definitely, maybe they have a sign up list for emails, I don't know. But you could check out the website that they have and just kind of keep an eye out for updates on that. And if I see anything, I'll certainly let everyone know, but I haven't gotten any details on how they'll be collecting input on that.
Okay. Anything
An
else?
opportunity to put another bid in for maintenance costs to be included when you're getting an active transportation passed, a plan passed for your city, that it includes a percentage or something to allow for maintenance. So it might be another opportunity to put a bid in there for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It says repairs. I don't know if that means like repairs on major pieces of infrastructure that exist already, or if there's maintenance money in there also, but it'll be interesting to see once they release all the details, what's considered an eligible expense under that.
So, thinking optimistically, if the province was to fund all of the things you asked for, are there some like back burner projects that could then like dip into the federal pot, and do even more?
The discussion I've had with the province is that they said they're not going to fund everything, that we would maybe get like our top two of it, but I don't have official word on that, so I'm still kind of crossing my fingers that there'll be more than that. There's definitely projects that have been discussed at our committee level and by council members that I know they would like to see advanced. But if there's other priority projects from this group that they would want considered, we can certainly add that to the list of once we find out that information on the fund we've already applied to, what do we want to apply for this? But just a reminder that it would require matching funds. I'm not sure exactly the contribution rate. If it's the normal public transit stream, we only have to put in 26%, which is really great. And then there's federal and provincial for the other parts. But yeah, so yes, if there's other projects, certainly you can move forward. But our priority would be to do those projects that we already have sort of planned out first, and then to work through those other list of priority projects.
So either way, the federal fund is great news.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I guess moving on. Do you have anything else to report, Ramona?
No, nothing else on that item.
Okay, okay. And so let's move on to reporting from department liaison. First, public works. Do we have a report for public works?
Not offhand. I was happy to see that they did plow the new AT trail out by the KFC partially. That's good. It'd be great if it's all year round, but I guess we can only hope for that in the fall. Everything else around town, the only thing that's kind of a mess is that fiber optic piping project that's been going on way too long. So, Ramona, do you know if the city has been given an end date to that with Danny Mullen?
I'm not aware of an end date. I was speaking to Richard on the project today, and just that it's taking longer than expected, but I don't know in terms of whether there's been a set end date or a changed end date as a result of that.
Do they have any contingency in that program for some of the mess that it's caused?
All of that should be fixed prior to them getting their final payment.
Okay.
I know there was some issues raised on the Confederation Trail. Now, when I had checked with Nancy and Richard on that, they felt that the ones that we had brought forward had been addressed. But if there's areas that are still outstanding, you could certainly like email them to me and I would pass them along to Richard and to just have a review.
Did I
I
see
think
you there?
my concern about those was the trenches that they had left were only going to get worse with the spring runoff. So it might be a good idea to review that, in April or May, if it's not too late.
Yeah, the work isn't done. Like it certainly wasn't done as of when I was speaking with him today. So I would assume there's still some work left on that one.
I'd like to note that
And,
they've kept the Confederation Trail within city limits plowed. As soon as the you know, there's a snowfall and they start plowing the streets, that trail is plowed from the arterial highway all the way into town. They've done an excellent job of keeping that up to date.
Just following up, I'm pretty sure last month we were talking about the snow clearing on the Hillsborough Bridge as well. I'm not sure if all of you would have seen this, but I guess Michelle Beaton asked about this in the legislature. Yeah, and so Alward said it will be used all 4 seasons. So that has been stated.
Okay.
So that's good. So yeah. I don't know if that means the province is going to do that, but that's what he said.
That would be good.
Ramona, are there applications or considerations for expanding the Slow Streets project into 2021 for this season?
I know Public Works has kind of taken over that project, so they did do a report on some findings on what they found from the project, and they did propose a couple, like, to expand the project for this year, but I don't know whether they've have picked out their streets and they know where they're going to go forward. But it was a positive report. It didn't have a huge impact on speed, but it did reduce somewhat. I guess my issue would be there's no tracking of active transportation use pre and post currently. So that was my feedback, is that I'd want to see them tracking the actual numbers, because I think that was the major intent of the project, is do you actually increase the amount of active transportation, whereas it was kind of looked at more, do you slow traffic and does it reduce traffic, which is a great outcome also, but yeah, but that's kind of been transferred over to Public Works as they've been doing the delivery of it.
Can you share that report with us?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
One other question. Just, I know people have asked me about it. The sidewalk down the Towers Road, I know that was kind of pushed off into this year. Do you know when they're going to start construction on that?
My understanding is it's not currently in the budget. It would be for a question like that, I don't have the answer offhand. I don't want to comment. I know there's some discussion happening, but I don't know the current status of that, and I'd have to check with Public Works and Planning in advance of giving a final answer on that.
Do you know if they've talked about it for this year?
It wasn't part of our applications. It was, from my understanding, we were waiting until the entire project was done and active transportation would be a component of the project that was going to be done there. But I don't know. I think the mayor wants to weigh in here too.
Yeah. Jason, we had a discussion this morning about that particular project. I think what we're looking at, Scott Adams, the manager for Public Works, if he hasn't spoken to Ramona, he will be speaking to Ramona. And it's in regards to the new funding through the federal government that was just announced, I believe, Ramona, last week. It's the AT fund for active transportation pathways across the country. So it's being, Mr. Adams is looking into it, and we'll get back to the councillor from the area, Councillor Mitchell Tweel. I'm sure it will come up at the next Environment and Sustainability Committee Standing Committee meeting.
Hopefully something can come of that, because I know that's a big thing for a lot of people in the city. I've heard it from many people, from not only from the active transportation side, but just how dangerous that road is at night with the lighting, and it's a real concern in the city. Like, there's projects that we can do to make things better, but that area is a dangerous area. It's almost like something that really needs to be addressed immediately.
And there is a lot of construction going on, and there will be in the foreseeable future because of the multi-unit apartment complex development. in that area. I think it's Diane McQuaid and Flourish Developments. So you could be looking at another 100+ units. So yes, it's an important connector to the trail, and hopefully when we look at developing the north side of the Towers Road, that we'll see another trail going down Spencer Drive, connecting up to Capitol Drive and then out into Cornwall.
Yeah, even if they can put down, like put down the base and pave it, if you expect the pavement to get ripped up, then the pavement gets ripped up, but repave it later or something. But it's a very big concern for a lot of people that, because people find out you're on a council, or they find out kind of any way they can to try to get support for that. And it's one of the things that's come up, like when people talk to you, you might be a one-off here and there for something, but this has come up like numerous times. So
yeah, and please get those individuals that you're speaking to pass that on to the councillor in their area. But I know it's back on the table, and the councillor from the area is pushing it to hopefully get it developed this year.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask you a question, Your Worship, just a kind of a general planning question about as housing extends into new areas of the city. So, I'm thinking about out toward the driving park and beyond there, where we're seeing new multi-unit buildings and areas where traditionally hasn't been residential development, and therefore there hasn't been sidewalks, active transportation infrastructure. It's kind of, it's new. Is there anything built into the planning and development regime that would require developers to have an active transportation plan? So, basically to suggest how their new development is going to allow people to cycle and walk and roll to work or school? Or is that something if there isn't, do you think that we could build that into the planning process?
Peter, interestingly, that was brought up today at a planning and development standing committee meeting. It's brought up by Councillor Julie McCabe. She's representing East Roldy, and you're familiar with the development that's going on out there with Montgomery Heights.
Yes.
So I know McWilliams Road has a multi-use pathway going north-south, and then on McCrae Drive, it goes up to a certain point, and it's like that bridge to nowhere just stops. And the councillor from the area would like to see that continue up right around to East Royalty Road to connect with McWilliams Road. But she's not just talking about her own area, but it should be looked at all different parts of the city. And I think this is the right task force to make that recommendation to planning and development, to say that, look, all this new development that is going up, that is taking place and will be in place within the next 6 months or next year, and future development after that period, that we need to develop more shared pathways.
Well, it does.
So
A lot of and I'm sure that you're exposed to a lot of this. A lot of the pushback from other residents or neighborhood residents when you're talking about increased density in a neighborhood is concerns about vehicle traffic. And one of the ways to address that is to not have vehicle traffic. And so if we can impose upon developers the need to, in as much as they build roads for their new subdivision, they need to build AT infrastructure before they even get out of the gate. I think that would help them, and I think it would help everybody. Yeah.
And Peter, it'd be a great recommendation to come from this group or this task force to just look at the big plan of Charlottetown and look at some of those developments that you mentioned. Kensington Road, the one I mentioned on Montgomery Drive. Jason mentioned about the Towers Road. There are a lot of developments around the city that should be connected with other parts of the city through AT pathways.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And next, moving on, do we have a Parks and Recreation report? Do you have anything, Peter?
That's me. I don't have anything new to report. I just wondered if other members of the task force had any feedback or thoughts on the discussion we had at our last meeting about snowmobile use of the Confederation Trail beyond the arterial highway. we've had a chance to reflect on that for a month. Have any of you thought more about that or had conversations about that? I'd be interested to know.
I know the trail, when I have bicycled out there, it does kind of Y out. So it Ys into Charlottetown, and then the other part of it would be right across where Toymaster is.
Yeah. Right.
And then you can either choose to go to down towards Charlottetown, or you can keep going. It'll take you out by the Perlator / Paderno area.
Yeah.
If anything, I mean, I kind of look at it like this: like, snowmobiling's a choice and it's legal. Not necessarily that I agree with it, because, I mean, I don't do it, but I have friends that do. But having those in the city, I don't think is necessarily good. It's not good for them, and it's not good for pedestrians and people. I don't know if the city can look at it and say kind of the outer boundary being that area by Toymaster through Paderno. Coming any further into the city, I think, is dangerous.
I had a conversation with a councillor from I can't remember the formal name, but it's the Brackley municipality that includes South Winslow. And that that council is talking about, in the same way that they have an excellent AT pathway that goes, basically from the airport, 3/4 of the way out to Brackley Beach. They're talking about on the road that goes from Winslow, effectively out to Oyster Bridge, and installing some AT infrastructure there. And if it was allowed to, if there was year-round AT use of everything from the Ontario Highway out to Royalty Junction, to the left to Winslow, to the right to the Brackley Point Road, I think then you're really leveraging a huge new network there. I have nothing else to report.
I was going to say on that, I've come out the Lower Malpeque Road. There was people walking just to cross the road there. And I had just stopped because they were almost finished, but right up behind them, as fast as anything, was a snowmobile. Like, they jumped off and that person kept going.
Oh.
And there was a child on that too, sitting in the front. I don't know the legalities around that, but yeah, they definitely had to jump off because there was no slowing. It was just a quick, when you stop at a stop sign, it should be 1, 2, 3, you count. This person just barely stopped and then zoomed, and those people jumped off, and I sat in the car and watched. So I think, moving it out, I think it's a great thing to be able to think about. And our city's now grown out there. So I consider that city.
Yeah.
And I think that they just don't belong on those trails where humans could be using them. I think it's something that really needs to be looked after. And I was very grateful for the presentation that we did have. So I felt I was educated in that, and then I began a little bit more education of myself, and I just think we need to move them out as much as we can.
I think we don't even, to your point, Jason, I don't think we need to make value judgments about snowmobiling, good or bad. I think our focus as a task force can be, there are residents of the city who live in Winslow. Yeah. They deserve to have AT infrastructures as much as people downtown and in East Royalty and, all the other neighborhoods. And so, and you would think in the grander scheme of things, if we can get more people from Winslow, using active transportation to get into other parts of the city, that's a big win because the distances are longer. So, and if you were going to design AT infrastructure for Winslow, the Confederation Trail is obviously the first place you would look rather than building new. So,
my only comment with the AT, and I agree with lessening it from the city is a great idea, just because there's an issue with the right of way, as you were saying, somebody had to move and the people in the snowmobile weren't going to move, and is that what you want in the city all the time, that these big snowmobiles coming by, and if you don't move, you're gonna get hit? Obviously slowing down sometimes may not be feasible, but I think that has to be put into consideration, considering like not during the winter. There's a lot of active transportation people on those paths. So
Yeah. So Peter,
Yes.
or Ryan, I know that maybe Margaret knows this too. I believe the trail goes out as far as Lower Malpeck Road, and it's just south of Fox Stockman Drive. And then on the other side of the Lower Malpeck Road at that point, that becomes Milton Vale. Milton Vale. So would it not be of interest for the city to ask the province to make it an active transportation pathway from that point on into the city? Because my understanding is that snowmobilers are allowed to go into as far as the bypass.
I would take it one step further, Your Worship. Anticipating the trail that Sean Murphy has been forwarding, through the Upton Farm up to the Confederation Trail. If we want that to be a truly year-round AT loop, then I think we want it to stop there. I think that would make a lot, and then you'd be getting, I think, into Milton Vale Park negotiations as well. But
I think, but for the meantime, in the best interest of the city of Charlottetown, it would be to take it out to our boundary and make that request. I believe the Minister of Transportation, Infrastructure and Energy is responsible for the trail, correct?
Ramon, I think did you not reference the agreement at our last meeting, or maybe that was Bryson who referenced that agreement.
Yes, Nancy is the keeper of the agreement in Park, so she monitors that. But my understanding is that agreement has not changed since it came into effect.
Okay. Is that, if we wanted to see a copy of that agreement, could you ask her for that, or would you like me to ask her for that?
Maybe it would be helpful to keep with our departmental liaison kind of style and have you follow up if you don't mind,
Okay.
Peter.
No, I'll follow up with her then, certainly.
Okay, good. So Peter, the purpose of seeing, to look at the agreement is to understand the rights and responsibility of snowmobilers up to the bypass, to the arterial highway, and then from there
just
into the
understand what's the situation now, and what's the time frame, and what are the requirements, and what would it take to change it, I guess. Yeah.
And there may be parts of that agreement that who's responsible for making changes and how do you make changes. Okay, good idea.
Okay, I will follow up with Nancy then.
right. Next, do we have a report?
Excuse me. I had a resolution that I put forward just for you people to review and see what you thought under Parks and Recreation.
Okay.
And I reworded it, and maybe I don't need all these whereases. Maybe they're too wordy. But you want me to read it out again?
Sure.
Okay. Whereas the safety of individuals walking or cycling alone should be taken into account when maintaining bicycle pathways. Whereas gender-aware bicycle planning should include allowances for women's physical safety. Whereas the width of a bicycle path should include planning for wider bicycles and non-standard cycles, including people with disabilities. I move that the bushes along the Confederation Trail within the city limits be cut back by 2 feet on either side or removed from the sides of this trail. Question.
Joanne, would you be thinking primarily of the area from Longworth Avenue kind of out to the farmer's market? Would that be your primary area of concern?
Yes, all the way to Belvedere.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's good, Joanne. I sometimes I struggle with this kind of thing in terms of when we get into the gender. I like to keep it just my preference to all humans. But I know that we had, I think that would, that's me. I mean, others may agree or not.
No,
It's okay.
I'm with you, I'm with you,
Yeah.
Margaret. I think it's safety for all. I don't think.
Yeah, I do
don't,
believe. Yeah, I do believe though, Joanne, when you went to your conference, and I loved hearing how they were making it like showcasing how this can be better for females, you know, to be able to travel. So I know that's where it comes from. And I'm wondering if there's just an opportunity to kind of word it in terms of for all humans, and perhaps specifically those that are underrepresented or, you know, whatever that language may be. Someone here I know is a better writer than I, as opposed to starting with that, you know. So I like the all human part. I recognize as a female every day I step out into a dark or walk a street of my own or go on that trail that I am more vulnerable than others. I live that, so I understand it, and I think we want to communicate it. I think maybe using the human mode is good to start, and then list other humans that are, or that it may be more impacted upon it. I think when those ditches are not cleared, when they're dropped down, they're full of garbage. There's branches peeking out every corner. I'd love to be able to go down to 1911, meet my friends, go to a comedy, get on my bike, drive back home. I'd love to be able to do that, but I do not feel safe. And those are things I think, Joanne, that you bring up, and they're very valid. And I think we have an opportunity as an active transportation committee to ensure that we are looking at person-centered active transportation. If we cannot meet the people where they are, and for whatever they are, we're going to be challenged. So we have to think about everyone. And if there's barriers in place for me, I suspect there's barriers in place for other folks. Yeah. And I think that we want to stand aside, and we want to look different and approach this in a great, in having all those perspectives. And the width of that trail is not overly wide either. You know, if you walked it during COVID, you're gonna, like, if you're coming up, you got to really get over there. So I think that's a great recommendation, Joanne. I love it.
I wonder if we could just say like all, I mean,
users,
as opposed to the gender piece, if we could just say like all users of the trail,
all
because
users. Yeah,
it could be, you know, to the point of you had language in there about non-standard cycles and disability and that. So to me, it would like, and not to say that you couldn't keep that part if you wish, but I just think
that we need to point out though. Yeah, I like that, Heather. But I have absolutely zero issue with listing people that have different barriers in place.
Yeah, the only
due
concern
to
I'd
whatever
have
reason.
The only concern I'd have is that we'd miss one, and someone like that. That's because I'm with you. It'd be nice to have everything you could come up with, but I'm sure we'd miss one, and then we'd be sure to hear about that. Yeah. So I wonder if we make it broad. I don't know what the language normally is in these things, but if we could broaden it, then
the Human Rights Commission can help with the Human Rights Commission can help with the language. Yeah. They know whenever.
Yeah. And we don't even have to go that far. But what I really want, I want to see this done, and I believe, and I've said this before, the Confederation Trail is extremely well maintained outside of the city. You go in Prince County and Kings County, and it's gorgeous. Down around Montague, there's lots of space, and it's safe and whatever. But you come up here and you want to go there along the research station and whatever, and those bushes are hanging or walk in the evening. It's not only cyclists, it's walkers too, big time. Because, you know, people go to UPEI, they come out to the mall, and, or, you know, it's the whole thing of the cycle. So, yeah, I just think we just need to emphasize that this is important. So, Ramona, I need direction. If I word this and then can I send it to you and you send it to the environmental and sustainable people, or first and then it goes to Parks and Rec, or does it go directly to Parks and Rec?
My understanding from our terms of reference is all our recommendations have to go to environment and sustainability and then be forwarded.
To the
Okay.
appropriate committees. Yeah.
Okay, and the other thing is, what's come back to us before is that with all these new parks and walkways and everything, is that Mayor Brown, you should be
Yes.
aware that Parks and Recs feel sometimes that they're constrained by not being able to maintain it all, and that's a real concern for them, and I can appreciate that, but in the summer season, particularly this year, it's my understanding the province of Prince Edward Island is making all kinds of money available for summer students. And perhaps the city could take on a couple of horticultural students or agricultural students or somebody that, you know, could work on flower beds and work on that part of the trail.
Yeah. Or just get students out there who will be working to clear the trail and make sure that the both sides of the trail are cleared back. I think you said go back 2 feet, or what's the?
I just picked 2 feet. I just
Yeah.
picked that.
Yeah, I think you can go back further than that if you look at some of the different parts of the trail all over the island. Yeah,
Okay.
as Ramona said, it goes back to Environment Sustainability Standing Committee, and then it's branched off to Parks and Recreation. But if Parks and Recreation require more money because of this recommendation, then that becomes an operational issue, and we're going into the operational budget process in the next week. So,
Okay.
Can I make a recommendation, Joanne, that you might consider 2 resolutions as opposed to 1. One would be a very simple resolution requesting that Parks and Recreation do exactly as you said in the area between Longworth Avenue and Belvedere. And you know, just action oriented. I don't think we need, you know, it's an issue of safety. I think that's all we really need to say. I don't think we need to make a larger case for it. I think there's a larger resolution that I think might take some more deliberation on our part, which is that we need to, when we're planning active transportation infrastructure, we need to look at it through a new set of lenses that we traditionally haven't. Because I think when we thought, you know, when people think about cyclists, they think about sporty people in spandex going 30 kilometers an hour for recreation. Now we're talking, and this is new, relatively speaking, we're talking about people going for groceries, people walking to school, people walking to Bar 1911 to go to a comedy night. So I think we need to broaden our definition of not only you know, trimming back bushes, but lighting, emergency alert buttons, you know, anything that would make the sense of safety and confidence that people have on the AT infrastructure improved. Because, you know, when I think about the Hermitage Creek Trail, for example, I wouldn't walk the Hermitage Creek Trail after dusk. And yet we're putting money into that. And we're thinking about that as an important connector between University Avenue and North River Road. But if it's only a valuable connector during daylight hours, then, you know, we failed half the day. So.
Okay. Do we need to vote on any of this, Ramona, to send it off?
I think you're putting forward a motion and you'd need a seconder, and then you'd want to call a vote if everyone was in favor.
Okay, so Margaret.
I second.
Seconding the first resolution will go to the Environment and Sustainability Committee, asking them about the bushes. It's an issue of safety, and asking them to send that resolution to Parks and Recreation. And I'll leave that. Brian, you can call for the vote.
Okay. I think I'm a chair. I can't vote.
Well, you can call the vote, Ryan.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. Okay, I've got. I see. We got 2.
Sorry, are we voting on what the
The
motion
first.
was that was written, or?
No,
The revised one.
the revised one. Just that it's an issue of safety and we need the bushes cut back.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you for clarifying. Okay. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, 1, 2. What about you, Carrie? Okay.
I'm voting yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay, it looks like we have we got a full.
Okay, Peter, can you make the second motion? Get it?
I think the second motion we may need some more thought on, and perhaps we could talk about that, you and I, Joanne, and bring it to the next meeting. Is that okay?
Perfect. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, is that all for Parks and Rec? Anything
Yes.
else?
For me.
Okay, next moving on is police. Is there a report for the police?
Hi, it's me, the police. I don't have any report, essentially. I just had a, I am getting the police reports monthly, and I was going to download them and send them along to you folks, but I didn't have any reports from police. I read through the reports I get just to see what's on the go, but other than that, not too much. But I'll send those all to you folks.
Great, perfect. Okay, and next one moving on is sustainability.
Ann doesn't have a report, and Ramona gave her report. Do you have anything else, Ramona?
Only that, just an update on signage. So we talked about this last year. We went out for quotes on bike signage for our streets, and Cycling PEI had done like an inventory for us of where cycling road signs needed to go. So we've ordered all those and they arrived this week, and I spoke to Public Works and they're going to start installs this spring. So just an update on that. We did have wayfinding signage for trails in our budget this year for capital budget, but it was cut as one of the items that did get cut this year. I still want to pursue that, but the delay that we had on the road signage, that'll mean this year will be the year to get the road signage in, and for next year we can look at the wayfinding signage. So just an update on those items. And then, you know, in an upcoming meeting, we should maybe at our April or May meeting, it might be good to have Katrina here. She's our sustainability officer, to talk about bike week ideas. And if you have any ideas on things that you'd like to see happen for bike week, because that'll happen again in June this year.
I think that would be great to have her at that meeting. I think, you know, it seems pretty clear one way or the other that cyclists are going to have the city to ourselves more, at least in the spring this year, than, you know, just like last year. So I think there's an opportunity to leverage that and encourage more people to dip their toe in the water of cycling who haven't before. So I think this is a good year for that.
Ramona, I saw the sign. It's pretty little, but I read it coming out of the hospital that says shared pathway right there along Riverside Drive. So that's a beginning.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a new one.
Just noticed it for the first time.
Okay.
Ramona, today I met her name is Frances Lunn. She was the winner of the photography contest for the Ice City celebration. And she said, I'd like to invite Philip, I'd like to invite you and whoever else is involved in active transportation to do a bicycle ride around the city and show you some of the dangerous areas that should be fixed. So I'm going to take her up on her offer, and I'll get when it gets warmer and better time to get out to cycling, I'll extend that invitation to the committee, because I think we should keep reminding ourselves that there are difficult areas out there for cycling. So she's a cyclist, and I don't know how active she is, but she wants to take the ride.
Even for people in wheelchairs, wheeling down the sidewalks and pathways as well. Like I could probably come with you and give you a few for sure.
Yeah. Thanks, Ryan.
Yep. Okay.
That's an interesting idea, Your Worship, that I wonder whether we might consider as a task force building into especially our kind of late spring, summer, early fall plans, is to look at different, whether we did it by wards or neighborhoods, just, maybe meeting, once we can meet face to face, meeting 1 month in West Royalty and taking the first hour of our meeting and doing a tour around and,
Yeah.
with people from that neighborhood to show us where their concerns are.
Yeah. Peter, Francis mentioned that new medium that we put in and installed down there by the 1911 jail. She said that when you're driving out on your bicycle, no problem. But when you're coming east into the city, there's not enough room for the vehicle and the bicycle. So you're forced to go up on the sidewalk, which I never thought of, but that is a problem for cyclists. And I said to her, well, just go up on the sidewalk. She said, well, it's illegal. I said, oh, that's your choice. But those are just some small examples. That was one example, but she had a number of other examples, and she said the best way to do this is to do the ride. So I'll get back to the task force when we can get out with her. And as Peter said, maybe meet in different parts of the city. West Royalty, there's the East Royalty Community Center, there's the Hillsborough Park Community Center. All those centers are available for us to use.
Yeah, good.
Mayor, I just think it's the best thing that was ever done, that improvement to Longworth Avenue over what was there before. And I'm very, very sorry if, there is a deficit there, but it's 100% more safe for walkers and cyclists than was there before. I think the city did a great job of addressing that situation.
Joanne, fully agree, but Francis was just saying that as, the new construction does help cyclists to get across that intersection. I know there were many near misses, and that pedestrian refuge is a safe area for cyclists or walkers. So she just named, she wasn't critical of the infrastructure that was put in there. She was just saying that there was just one flaw, but hey, that can be corrected.
Okay. Next, moving on, cycling PEI. We have a report for cycling PEI.
Nothing on that front, no.
Okay. Yeah, it's a tough time. And how about bike-friendly Charlottetown? You have a report for that?
We've been busy. We've been having some strategy meetings, and we have officially submitted our application for incorporation as a nonprofit. So stay tuned. We'll be announcing some things once that all comes. I'm just following up on the national strategy engagement. I'm just waiting for Mitch to get back to me to confirm, but I guess Velo Canada Bikes. Are you familiar with that group?
No.
They seem to be doing the engagement for this. They seem to be in charge. So I guess Mitch at least has been in touch with them, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but he did send a message earlier this week that there is some sort of engagement about this tomorrow morning for the Atlantic region. So I'm just trying to find out more about that because I did a quick Google and I can't find anything. So anyway, seems relevant to our interests, but I'm sorry, I don't have more to share about that, if that's an open thing or if that's just something that's closed. But they seem to have already begun doing some engagement around that.
Okay, so Carrie, just for the minutes, Velo
Yes.
Canada Bikes are doing an
Yes.
engagement for the Atlantic region. Is that what I should put in?
Yes, they're doing engagement across Canada for the national strategy.
Oh, okay,
And
okay, okay.
yes, and apparently there is a session for the Atlantic region tomorrow at 10:30. I have no other information if that's virtual, if that's a closed meeting or open, but perhaps I can share it with you if I hear back from him tonight. About that.
Okay. Being that, is there any new business?
Ryan, could
Yeah.
I just ask about, I've never really got an answer or really asked a question about helmet use, bicycle helmet use. There's been some Twitter chat about, promoting more cycling in our cities, but the photos or the images they use are from the Netherlands, where helmets are not required, or that's what it appears. And I reached out and said, where are their helmets? And I know Kenny Murnion, he's a survivor he's a brain injury survivor. He was
I
actually,
met him.
and he was hit by a car when he was 7 years old, and he's a big promoter. Is there, what's the stand or the view from this task force? Is it, to look at the European style, or in Montreal you can rent bikes without required to use a helmet? I'd just like to put that out there.
I think it's mandatory. Like,
It is.
obviously it's mandatory to wear a helmet. Like, it should be just assuming that they're going to wear a helmet. Like, and maybe there needs to be better photography of people in the island wearing a helmet on a bicycle to encourage it, but it's been like that for years.
I know there is a lot, and I know it does come up at our Police and Emergency Services Standing Committee meeting, where some councillors are asking, why are we not imposing fines on bicycle users not wearing their helmets? And it becomes an operational issue, and how far do you go, and can they afford it? But from this task force point of view, I'm with the understanding that we're strong believers of helmet use. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to confirm that, because
We are, and Mayor Brown, Margaret Galant's our liaison with the police department, and she has talked to them about that. We have had the discussion, I'd say, when we first started, about the notice of that, and what incentives could the police do, and and they've done their best to encourage cycling, safety, and helmets, and one thing that I wanted to see was more cycle safety introduced into the schools. And do you remember I had written to the Department of Education, and they said it was in their health curriculum for the grade fives. They've got 2 or 4 pages on it. And you said, recognizing that sometimes they don't get all the way through the curriculum, so the teacher
correct.
doesn't get to that part, unfortunately. So it's well brought up, and perhaps that's something more that if we have Katrina come to, this is March, to the April meeting, Ramona, we can brainstorm with her how we can get more education and awareness around helmets, because that you're quite right in addressing that, Mayor, that is something that we are concerned about. Yes.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up, Joanne, because when I asked the question, the thread that was picking up by it was that in some countries it's too expensive to buy a helmet, but you're forced to ride bikes. But I'm talking more from a Canadian perspective, or in our situation, a city of Charlottetown perspective. And I'm a believer of helmets. After being a member of the BIA, the Brain Injury Association of PEI for several years. I've seen the results of brain injury, not always from bicycles, but for Kenny's situation, he's a firm believer in, and I think he actually forced Campbell Webster finally to wear his helmet. And so I always tell Kenny that you're the guy that got Campbell Webster to wear his helmet. But it's really important that we promote it, and I'm glad that Margaret is part of that, is in that position as a liaison. So I'll definitely attend the next meeting.
I
I
think
think the thing we need to be mindful of when people compare us to other jurisdictions is cycling in downtown Copenhagen and cycling in downtown Amsterdam, in terms of the nature of the infrastructure and how people follow the rules and cultural practice, very different situation. And we can look at people not wearing helmets there. It's not the same as cycling on University Avenue in Charlottetown. It's not the same as cycling, in many other parts of the province. So I think for our lifetimes, I think the only safe route is to continue to enforce helmet safety and just have it be the way of life.
I think it's important to continue with the positive enforcement of it and the education and the incentives or little rewards for wearing your helmet sort of side of thing, as opposed to the punishment, because I think that could create more barriers and and reasons for people not to cycle.
Correct.
Yeah.
I agree. Like, I think we should have a priority, but if there are reasons, practical reasons, financial reasons that people can't use a bicycle because they can't afford a helmet, then we need to address that issue. And I think we should do that. You're right. Through the public.
And Kenny, through his organization, over the years, provided many free helmets to Prince Street School, the St. Jean School, Spring Park. So they were always out there pushing the helmet use by providing free helmets. Thank you.
Yeah, and anyone riding a bike, it'd be good to have like a public promotion strategy that, like, over the years, somebody, like, they wouldn't even consider riding their bike without a helmet. Like, obviously, you should be like that now anyways, but just something to help the youth do that more often is greatly beneficial for Charlottetown as well. Yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any new business? Hello?
Nothing here.
No.
Okay. And yeah, we've mentioned the snowmobile issue. I just previously mentioned about like the two deaths that were just happened last month regarding the snowmobiles, and I just was concerned that maybe it had anything with like the cycling paths here, but it sounds like it was further out, but it's still something to be concerned about, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Good point, Brian.
Okay, and if there's no any new business, I guess meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Be smart. Stay apart.
Yep.